Read my lease, you say? Apologies if there are any formatting issues since I'm writing this on mobile. Anyway, this grudge has been simmering for almost a year now and has only just come to fruition. It began with my next-door neighbor leaving me a passive-aggressive note for having trash outside my door while I was cleaning my apartment. 2 important points here. 1. I was deep cleaning because the landlord sent a note saying the adjoining apartment, my neighbors, had roaches. I needed to clean so the exterminator could see if my apartment was infested as well. 2. The trash was by my door for 30 minutes at most. I was trying to save a trip to the dumpster and doing a final sweep of the apartment before heading down. Now, prior to this incident, this neighbor had already pissed me off by constantly blaring their loud music to the point where my apartment walls vibrated. Fortunately for them, I prefer to avoid confrontation, so I never called them out on it. After the passive-aggressive note calling me a pig though, all bets were off. She wrote that I should read my lease since I left my nasty trash everywhere. Okay, which, it's on. I read my lease like I was snorting coke off it. Every time they played their music loud, I filed a noise complaint. When I got a whiff of pot coming from their apartment, I filed another complaint. The lease says tenants must comply with the state's drug laws or risk eviction, so, hey, another win for me. Finally, they brought a dog into the apartment despite the no pet policy's exception only being for service animals. This was obviously not a service dog since it howled day and night, betraying no semblance of training. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who complained after that final stunt, since my landlord said the noisy dog problem was being taken care of through litigation and my next door neighbor's lease would not be renewed. Guess she should have read it.
Now to the comments. The very first day I moved into my apartment, the police showed up. I hadn't been there more than 2 hours. Get a knock on my door, figure it's someone saying hello to the new neighbor. Nope. 5 cops and some guy in a suit and tie. They tell me they just got a call that there's a domestic disturbance going on. I let them peek their heads in my apartment, which they could clearly see had nothing in it, and I explained I was moving in, live by myself, and they couldn't possibly be here for domestic disturbance. That was the start of a very bad relationship with my downstairs neighbor.
I need more.
Her name was Caroline and she was a witch. This was in 2015 to 2016 and she was in her early 40s at the time. I'm assuming she was in her early 40s anyway, because her license plate read YOLO 76. In addition to calling the police on me that first night, Caroline also called the property manager and complained about me. I know this because the very next day the property manager called me to ask what I was doing to make so much noise. I explained there wasn't any noise other than me moving in. PM told me Caroline had gone a month without anyone living above her and she complained at the very first sound. Told me not to worry about it. Caroline quickly started banging on the walls and ceiling whenever I would walk around. She would make rude comments about me on her balcony so I could hear, and she continued to call the PM on me. The PM called me a few months later to say that Caroline had still been complaining. I told her that Caroline banged on the walls and ceilings and I hadn't complained once. That she had a dog that barked nonstop and I hadn't complained once. Well, I'm going to start complaining. Every time Caroline banged on the walls, the PM got an email. I looked up my local ordinance on pet noise. A dog is in violation if they can be heard once every 2 minutes for 25 consecutive minutes. Her dog easily was in violation. I called animal control and let them deal with it. Caroline lived there for about another month after I stopped putting up with her shit. Fast forward several more months and I get this really weird package in the mail, only addressed to my first name with no return address. I opened it up and it stank like shit, so I threw it away and didn't think twice about it. That is until I moved out and returned my keys. And when I returned my keys I said these are the keys for 1516G and the woman looked at me like I had 3 eyes and asked me how were her and I related. I was completely dumbfounded by the question and asked what she meant. She said you got a suspicious package in the mail a couple weeks back, right? We got the same package delivered to the office. We called 911 and the bomb squad came out and determined the package was tuna and cat feces. We asked the postman about it the next day and he said you got the same type of weird package on the same day. So how are we related? Who hates the both of us? After running through the short list of names, we determined it was Caroline. No idea if they ever tried to pursue charges. But yet, that's my story. She was a complete witch. I once wondered aloud to a neighbor why my upstairs neighbor, a man I'd see on the street, exchange friendly greetings with, etc., would jump in his apartment. Everywhere. Stomp. 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 Very deliberate. He walked normally on the street. WTF? I was informed he takes his prosthetic leg off when he's home. I did not complain about the noise.
That's not where I expected that to go. It always sounded like my upstairs neighbor's kids were literally knocking over furniture, just extremely loud, and it drove me crazy when I was trying to sleep. Now that I have experienced small children, there's no way to prevent that level of noise, and being above your head just amplifies it. Your neighbor was literally jumping around.
I've broken a lease over loud children. I don't blame the kids or the parents. I have a kid and I know there's only so much you can do, but my husband works from home and he couldn't stand hearing them all day. Now we rent a house instead. I just don't understand why people who know they're breaking the rules don't just keep their head down and ignore the rules you're breaking. It's a mutual thing, like I smoke weed and my neighbor plays his music a little too loud sometimes. I don't report him and he doesn't report me. We've kind of got a symbiosis thing going on. But why, if you are breaking several rules in your lease, point out somebody else making a very minor violation of it? Couldn't that possibly lead to the landlord making sure all the tenants are following the lease? It's like, come on, you don't tell the teacher when she forgot to assign homework. Be a bro. Look out for your fellow rule breaker.
OP replied. Honestly, the reason I put up with the loud music so long is that my girlfriend wasn't spoiling for a fight. We let a ton of shit slide for a year before the roach incident because we didn't think complaining about them was worth the energy. The note thing pushed her over the edge and, as an Asian lady, she showed me why there are entire horror franchises built around their grudges.
That last sentence was epic. I like to think of myself as a good neighbor, but my last neighbor in the unit beneath me went a bit too far. A few things of note: I work a second job as a sexual assault response advocate, which means I get called at very random times like 2 a.m. I also have a dog. She complained constantly about noise. Not loud music or TV. Walking. I was walking too much after 9 p.m. Could I stop? Then she started taping notes to my door telling me that my dog was waking her up at night. Luckily, she always put the times she was awoken and it always coincided with the time I had to go to the ER. Nothing to do with the dog, who passes out for about 12 hours each night. Luckily, I too was aware of my lease and all complaints are to be through them. They ended the ongoing harassment dang quick. Noises above you suck, and I tried to accommodate. But, at some point you need to realize and check your unrealistic expectations.
We had an upstairs neighbor who had two beautiful little daughters. At night it sounded like a herd of elephants stampeding over our heads. You know, my wife and I said they are little kids, and that's just the way it is. A couple years go by and they are getting ready to move. Mom comes down one evening for a quick visit with my wife, and while there the evening stampede starts. Mom is mortified. She asks why we never said anything. We told her that her daughters are well-behaved young ladies and clearly just needed to burn off some energy. First, the next couple of weeks Mom apologized every time she saw us and we never heard the stampede again.
I had the opposite problem with a woman who lived upstairs. The kids would be stampeding around the house early in the morning, like 4 to 5 a.m., screaming at the top of their lungs. Then they'd go downstairs and spend hours slamming a hockey puck against the garage wall that was shared with the basement suite. The mom got really pissy if anyone asked them to be quieter. She would be sleeping, apparently with earplugs, and really had no idea what her kids were up to. Finally, the landlord saw the damage the kids had done to the garage wall and was furious. The woman and her kids moved out about a month later.